Don't worry, my husband chuckled into the phone, she buys all my lies. He had no idea I'd picked up the extension. I sat in absolute silence that night, and by morning, a plan had crystallized in my mind, one he would never, ever see coming. My name is Rachel, and I'm 34 years old. For nearly 5 years, I genuinely believed I had the perfect marriage, the kind other couples secretly envied. Marcus was the husband who remembered every anniversary, who left sweet, handwritten notes in my lunch bag. That illusion shattered one sleepless night when, restless, I wandered into our guest bedroom, picked up the old extension phone, and overheard a conversation that ripped my world apart. "Don't worry," Marcus laughed, his voice a honeyed murmur to someone who was definitely not his colleague from Tokyo, "she buys all my lies." Those 5 words didn't just shatter my world, they detonated it. But in the rubble, something new awakened in me, something I hadn't known existed. What transpired at our anniversary dinner 2 weeks later, with 8 unsuspecting guests, 3 hidden cameras, and 1 very special recording, would ultimately reveal that the man I married was capable of far more than just an affair. People say you never truly know someone until you live with them. I used to laugh at that, dismissing it as a cynical view of love. Marcus and I, we were different. We were the couple, the ones whose Instagram posts made single friends sigh wistfully and married ones wonder where their spark had vanished. If our marriage were a house, it would have been one of those pristine colonials, complete with a white picket fence, manicured lawn, and window boxes overflowing with geraniums. From the street, you'd never guess the foundation was slowly, silently cracking beneath. I remember the exact moment I fell for Marcus. It was at my friend Sarah's birthday party, one of those rooftop affairs where everyone pretends to be more sophisticated than they are, sipping overpriced cocktails and discussing podcasts they've only half listened to. Marcus arrived late. He always did have a flair for entrances, wearing a navy blazer that perfectly brought out his eyes, carrying himself with the kind of effortless confidence that made you lean in when he spoke. He found me by the bar, struggling to open a stubborn olive jar for my martini. Instead of the typical masculine display of brute force, he produced a rubber glove from his pocket. "Always carry one," he'd said with a charming wink. "You never know when you'll need extra grip for life's stubborn moments." The jar popped open instantly. We talked until the rooftop emptied, until the city lights blurred into the dawn, until my feet ached from standing. But I didn't want to move, because moving meant this conversation might end. He listened, truly listened, when I talked about my work as a graphic designer, asking questions that showed he was paying attention, not just waiting for his turn to speak. When I mentioned my mother's recent health scare, his face softened with genuine concern. Our wedding, 2 years later, was everything I'd dreamed of since I was 12, sketching elaborate dresses in the margins of my school notebooks. Marcus proposed under a canopy of fairy lights at our favorite restaurant, the same place we'd had our 3rd date, where he'd remembered I was allergic to shellfish and had discreetly told the waiter when I'd been too embarrassed to make a fuss. The proposal was perfect. Not too public, not too private, him dropping to one knee just as the string quartet began playing Lullaby and Rose, my mother's favorite song, which I'd mentioned exactly once, 6 months prior. "You remember everything," I'd sobbed through happy tears as he slipped the ring, a vintage Art Deco piece he'd hunted down because I'd once admired something similar in an antique shop window, onto my finger. "Only the important things," he'd replied. And God, I believed him. The first 3 years were a dream, a meticulously edited version for public consumption. Marcus had this way of making ordinary moments feel special. Tuesday nights became Taco Tuesday extravaganzas where we'd compete to create the most outrageous taco combination. He'd leave post-it notes on my coffee mug with silly drawings and worse puns. When I landed a major client, he'd throw me a surprise party, somehow managing to gather all my friends without my suspecting a thing. He was attentive, thoughtful, the kind of husband who noticed when you changed your hair, remembered your CEO's name, and asked about that presentation you were nervous about. Our friends were exhausting in their admiration. "You're so lucky," they'd say. Marcus is such a catch. When is he going to teach my husband how to be romantic? You two are relationship goals. I'd smile and deflect, but secretly, I glowed. I was lucky. I had won the lottery of love. My person, my teammate, my forever. My mother, though, she had always been harder to convince. She'd pull me aside at family gatherings, studying Marcus as he charmed my aunts and uncles, his laughter carrying across the room like expensive cologne. Charm can be a mask, not a heart, she'd said once, propos of nothing, while we were washing dishes after Thanksgiving dinner. Marcus had been in the living room, entertaining my father with some story about a business triumph, his hands moving animatedly, his voice rising and falling with practiced rhythm. "Mom, please," I'd said, embarrassed by her skepticism. "Marcus is wonderful." She dried a plate slowly, deliberately. "I'm not saying he isn't. I'm just saying that sometimes the most charming people are the ones with the most to hide." I dismissed her concerns as generational cynicism, the weariness of a woman who'd been divorced twice and saw betrayal lurking in every romantic gesture. But her words had lodged themselves somewhere in my subconscious, like a splinter too deep to extract. The changes started small, so small I wonder now if I was willfully blind or just hopelessly naive. Marcus began working late more often. Not suspicious in itself, he'd just been promoted to senior account manager at the advertising firm. But he'd come home with his stories already rehearsed, offering details I hadn't asked for, as if he'd practiced them in the car. Traffic was murder on the expressway. "That construction near exit 42 is a nightmare," he'd say when I'd only said hello. His phone, which used to lie carelessly on counters and coffee tables, began living in his pocket. When it buzzed during dinner, he glanced at it and flipped it face down with a movement so quick it seemed reflexive. "Who's that?" I'd asked one evening, keeping my tone light, conversational. "Just work," he replied, but there was an edge to his voice, sharp enough to cut off further questions. "Davidson's being a pain about the Morrison campaign." The work trips multiplied. Conference in Chicago, client meeting in Boston, team building in Miami. Always documented with a few photos, Marcus at a convention booth, Marcus with colleagues at dinner, Marcus by a hotel pool with a laptop. The dedicated professional. But the photos seemed staged somehow, like he was an actor hitting his marks. I told myself I was being paranoid. This was Marcus. My Marcus, the man who still brought me flowers every Friday, who rubbed my feet while we watched Netflix, who knew exactly how I liked my coffee, oat milk, half a sugar, tiny splash of vanilla. 3 weeks ago, something shifted. We were at dinner with our friends Tom and Janet, the kind of couple who'd been together since college and finished each other's sentences without seeming insufferable about it. Marcus was in peak form, regaling the table with a story about landing a difficult client, his voice smooth as aged whiskey, his timing impeccable. The CEO was this total hard ass, he was saying, wouldn't budge on the budget. But I knew his weakness. He's a Knicks fan, so I just happened to mention I had courtside seats for next week's game, and suddenly we're best friends. Tom laughed appreciatively. Janet hung on every word. I watched my husband perform and felt a strange disconnection, like I was watching him on television instead of sitting across from him. "You're so lucky," Janet said to me for the 100th time. Marcus could sell ice to Eskimos. "Yes," I'd replied, the word tasting strange in my mouth. "He's very convincing." That night, he'd been especially tender. He'd drawn me a bath with those expensive bath salts I loved but rarely used. He brought me chamomile tea in my favorite mug, the one with the chip on the handle that I refused to throw away because we'd bought it on our honeymoon in Portugal. He tucked a blanket around my shoulders as we sat on the couch, his fingers playing with my hair the way that usually made me drowsy and content. "You okay, babe?" he'd asked, his brown eyes full of what looked like concern. "You seemed quiet at dinner." "Just tired," I'd lied, not even sure why I was lying. You work too hard, he'd said, kissing my forehead. You should take a day off. Spa day. My treat. The perfect husband. The perfect response. So why did it feel like lines from a script? 2 nights later, I couldn't sleep. The bedroom felt too warm, the air stifling despite the air conditioning humming steadily. Marcus was in his office. Another late-night call with the Tokyo team, he'd explained, something about time zones and international accounts. I padded to the kitchen for a glass of water, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floors we'd chosen together, arguing playfully over oak versus cherry. His office door was closed, but his voice carried, muffled but animated. He laughed, not his public laugh, the one I'd heard 1,000 times at parties and dinners, but something different. Lighter, younger, unguarded in a way I hadn't heard in months, maybe years. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. It starts as an itch, becomes a pull, transforms into a need. I stood in the hallway, water glass forgotten, listening to the rhythm of his voice without making out the words. He sounded happy. When was the last time he'd sounded that happy talking to me? I remembered the old landline phone in the guest bedroom. We'd kept it for emergencies, a relic from a time before cell phones became appendages. It was still connected to the same line as his office phone. We'd never bothered to separate them, because who used landlines anymore? My hand was on the guest bedroom doorknob before I'd made a conscious decision to move. The door opened silently. Marcus had double-oiled all the hinges last month, part of his weekend warrior routine. The phone sat on the nightstand, beige and outdated, looking like an artifact from another era. I picked up the handset. The first thing I heard was Marcus laughing, and the sound hit me like cold water. It was intimate laughter, the kind that comes from shared secrets, inside jokes, the comfortable humor of people who know each other well. Too well. Don't worry, he was saying, his voice honey-smooth and relaxed, she buys all my lies. The words didn't register at first. They floated in the air like foreign objects, incomprehensible shapes that my brain couldn't quite process. Asterisk, she buys all my lies. She. My. Lies. She, me, his wife, the woman sleeping in the next room, or so he thought, asterisk, a woman's voice responded, melodic and amused. You're terrible, she said, but in that way that meant the opposite, the way you'd say it to someone whose terribleness you found charming. What did you tell her this time? Tokyo conference call, Marcus replied, and I could hear his grin through the phone. She probably thinks I'm discussing market penetration strategies right now. Well, the woman purred, I suppose that's not entirely inaccurate. They both laughed at this, and I felt my knees begin to shake. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, the phone pressed to my ear like a life preserver, even though it was the thing drowning me. God, I miss you, Marcus said, his voice dropping to a register I recognized, the one he used in our bedroom, the one I thought was mine alone. These family dinners, these friend gatherings, playing the devoted husband, it's exhausting. Poor baby, the woman cooed, and there was a rustling sound like she was settling into bed. Having to pretend to love your wife must be so hard. My free hand flew to my mouth, stifling the sob that threatened to escape. I bit down on my knuckles, hard enough to leave marks, the pain a welcome distraction from the earthquake happening in my chest. She's not terrible, Marcus said, and for a moment, one pathetic moment, I felt a flutter of hope. She's just. God, how do I explain it? She's like a golden retriever. Loyal, trusting, always happy to see me. It was endearing at first, but now you have me, the woman finished. Now I have you, he agreed. Smart, sophisticated, challenging. You keep me on my toes, Vanessa. Vanessa. The name branded itself into my brain. Vanessa. Not a colleague, not a client, not any of the explanations that had been half-forming in my mind like escape routes. Speaking of keeping you on your toes, Vanessa said, I booked us that suite at the Ritz for next weekend. The one with the view we liked last time. Last time. There had been a last time, multiple times, a history I knew nothing about. A parallel life running alongside mine like a hidden track. Next weekend? Marcus sounded hesitant. That's our anniversary weekend. She's been planning something. So tell her Davidson needs you for an emergency pitch. You've done it before. True, he said, and I could hear him shifting in his chair, the leather creaking, the expensive office chair I'd bought him for Christmas because his back had been hurting. She actually apologized last time for being upset about me missing her birthday dinner. Can you believe that? She apologized to me. The laughter that followed felt like being flayed alive. Every chuckle stripped away another layer of who I thought I was, who I thought we were, leaving me raw and exposed on the guest bedroom floor. The really hilarious part, Marcus continued, warming to his theme like this was a TED Talk on deception, is how she thinks she's being subtle when she's suspicious. Last week, she asked about my phone when it buzzed at dinner. Her voice gets this particular tone, like she's trying so hard to sound casual. It's like watching a child try to lie. Does she suspect about us specifically? God, no. She doesn't even know you exist. As far as she's concerned, you're still Derek from accounting. Remember when I saved your number under that name? Clever boy, Vanessa praised. Though I'm insulted, you think I look like a Derek? You definitely don't look like a Derek, Marcus said, his voice dropping to that register again, the one that used to make me blush. Especially not in that red dress from last Tuesday. Last Tuesday, when he'd said he was at a client dinner. He'd come home mentioning the terrible seafood, complaining about pretentious restaurants that served foam instead of food. I'd made him a grilled cheese sandwich at midnight, and he'd kissed me and said I was the best wife in the world. I have to say, Vanessa mused, I almost feel sorry for her sometimes. She seems sweet, from what you've told me. Just, simple. Simple is one word for it, Marcus agreed. She still leaves me little notes in my lunch. Draws hearts on them. Hearts, like we're in middle school. Those notes. I'd been leaving those notes for 5 years. It started as a honeymoon joke that became a tradition. Sometimes just, love you, sometimes longer messages when I knew he had a hard day ahead. I'd drawn those hearts with such care, such genuine affection, and he'd been showing them to her, laughing about them with her. The funny thing is, Marcus continued, she prides herself on being observant. She's a graphic designer, always talking about noticing details, seeing what others miss. But she can't see what's right in front of her face. Maybe she doesn't want to see, Vanessa suggested. Some women prefer the illusion. Maybe, Marcus said, though honestly, I think she's just that trusting. Her mother warned her about me, you know, said charm could be a mask. But she defended me, told her mother she was being cynical. My mother. My prophetic, twice divorced, seen-it-all mother, who I dismissed as paranoid. The tears were flowing freely now, silent streams down my face, dripping onto my pajama top, Marcus's old college t-shirt that I wore because it smelled like him. How much longer are you going to keep this up? Vanessa asked. The marriage, I mean. I need to be strategic about it, Marcus replied, all business now. There's the house to consider. Both our names on it. Her inheritance from her aunt hasn't come through yet, but when it does, well, timing is everything. Plus, leaving now would look bad at work. Family man image and all that. Davidson loves that about me. Thinks it makes me stable, trustworthy. Trustworthy. The word was a knife between my ribs. So, I'm your dirty little secret? Vanessa said, but she sounded amused rather than offended. You're my escape, Marcus corrected. My real life. Everything else is just performance. Our marriage was a performance. Our life together, our inside jokes, our Sunday morning pancakes, our planned trip to Greece next summer. All of it just Marcus playing a role. I should go, Marcus said suddenly. She sometimes gets up for water around this time. Sweet dreams, my love, Vanessa said. Always with their view, Marcus replied, and I heard the phone click off. I sat on the floor, handset still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone like it might tell me this had all been a nightmare. My body felt disconnected from my mind, like I was floating above myself, watching this pathetic woman in her husband's t-shirt, sitting on the floor of her guest bedroom, her world detonating in slow motion. I heard Marcus's office door open, his footsteps in the hallway. Moving automatically, I hung up the phone with excruciating care, making sure it didn't make a sound. Then I crept to the door, cracking it open just enough to see him walk past, stretching like a cat, satisfied and relaxed. He headed to our bedroom. Our bedroom, where I was supposed to be sleeping, trusting and simple, buying all his lies. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close, then made my way back on trembling legs. I slipped into bed beside him, controlling my breathing, forcing my body to relax, to play the part of the sleeping wife. Marcus settled beside me, his breathing evening out quickly, the sleep of someone without guilt, without conscience. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, his words echoing in my head on an endless loop. Asterisk, she buys all my lies. Simple. Golden retriever. Performance, asterisk. I turned my head slightly to look at him in the darkness. His face was peaceful, almost boyish in sleep. The face I'd fallen in love with. The face I'd planned to grow old with. The face that had looked at me over wedding vows and promised to love, honor, and cherish. All lies. The strange thing was, underneath the devastation, underneath the feeling that my chest had been cracked open and my heart scooped out, there was something else. A tiny flame, barely visible, but definitely there. Anger. Not hot anger, not yet. This was cold, calculating. The kind of anger that doesn't explode, but plans. He thought I was simple, trusting, a golden retriever. Tomorrow I would wake up and make his coffee, oat milk, half a sugar, tiny splash of vanilla, because unlike him, I actually did remember the important things. I would kiss him goodbye and remind him about dinner with my parents on Sunday. I would leave a note in his lunch with a heart on it. And I would begin to plan. Because if Marcus thought I was too simple to see what was in front of me, then he was too arrogant to see what was coming for him. He wanted a performance. I would give him the performance of a lifetime. In the darkness, staring at the ceiling while my husband slept beside me, I whispered words so quiet even I could barely hear them. Tomorrow, everything changes. The moon cast shadows through our bedroom window, the same window where we'd hung those sheer curtains I'd agonized over, wanting everything to be perfect for our perfect life. The shadows looked different now, longer, darker, full of secrets I was only beginning to uncover. Marcus stirred beside me, mumbling something in his sleep. His arm moved toward me instinctively, a gesture that would have comforted me just hours ago. Now I had to force myself not to recoil. Instead, I lay still, playing the part of the sleeping wife, the simple wife, the wife who buys all his lies. But I wasn't sleeping. I was wide awake, more awake than I'd been in years. And tomorrow, the real performance would begin. The morning after everything changed. I woke before the alarm. Marcus was still sleeping, one arm flung across the space where I'd been lying, his face peaceful in the pale dawn light filtering through those carefully chosen curtains. I studied him like an archaeologist examining the ruins of a lost civilization, looking for clues I'd missed, evidence of the stranger I'd married. His jawline, which I'd traced with my fingers 1,000 times, now seemed sharper, more calculating. The laugh lines around his eyes, which I'd found charming, now looked like marks left by years of practiced smiles. Even his breathing seemed different, not the respiration of my husband, but of an actor resting between scenes. I slipped out of bed with the careful movements of someone defusing a bomb. In the kitchen, I went through the morning routine that had become as automatic as breathing. Coffee maker on. 2 mugs from the cabinet, his with the bank logo from some corporate event, mine with the Van Gogh sunflowers. Oat milk from the fridge, half a sugar, tiny splash of vanilla. My hands moved independently of my mind, which was still processing, still replaying, still absorbing the magnitude of what I'd learned. She buys all my lies, the words had carved themselves into my brain, playing on a loop with the clarity of a recording. Morning, beautiful, Marcus said from the doorway, and I nearly dropped the milk. He stood there in his pajama bottoms and the Harvard t-shirt he never earned. He'd gone to state, but the shirt looked better, stretching like a satisfied cat. His hair was mussed in that artfully careless way, and he gave me the smile that used to make my stomach flutter. Now it made my skin crawl. Morning, I replied, proud of how normal my voice sounded. Coffee is almost ready. He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, pressing a kiss to my neck. You're up early. Couldn't sleep, I said, which was true. Big presentation today. The Morrison account, he asked, and I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. He remembered my work schedule, the names of my clients, but couldn't remember his wedding vows. That's the one, I said, turning in his arms to hand him his coffee. Our eyes met, and I searched his for any sign of guilt, any flicker of awareness that I knew. But there was nothing. Just the same warm brown eyes that had looked at me over dinner tables and through wedding ceremonies and across pillows for 5 years. You'll nail it, he said, taking a sip of coffee. You always do. Hey, I might be late tonight. Davidson wants to review the quarterly projections. Davidson. I wondered if that was code for Vanessa now, or if Davidson was just another useful excuse in his repertoire of lies. No problem, I said, taking my own sip of coffee to hide my face. I'll grab dinner with Sarah. Perfect, he said, already scrolling through his phone, thumb moving with practiced efficiency. Was he texting her? Setting up their evening plans while standing in our kitchen, drinking coffee I'd made, wearing the wedding ring I'd placed on his finger? He left for work with his usual routine, kiss on the forehead, reminder about dry cleaning, casual, love you, tossed over his shoulder like spare change. I stood at the window and watched his car pull out of the driveway, waiting until it turned the corner before I moved. The house felt different with him gone, like a stage after the audience has left. I walked through our rooms, our carefully decorated rooms with the paint colors we'd argued about and the furniture we'd saved for, and saw them differently. The photographs on the mantelpiece looked like props. Our wedding photo, which had always made me smile, now looked like a poster for a movie about deception. There I was in white lace, glowing with happiness, while Marcus stood beside me, his smile camera-ready and meaningless. I called in sick to work. Miranda, my assistant, sounded concerned. You never call in sick, she said. Are you okay? Just need a day, I told her, which was both true and wildly inadequate. I needed more than a day. I needed to rewind time, to go back to that rooftop party and walk away when Marcus approached with his rubber glove and his practiced charm. But time only moved forward, so forward I would go. I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and began to write. Everything I'd heard, every word, as precisely as I could remember them. My hand shook at first, but steadied as I wrote. There was something powerful about seeing it in black and white, transforming the nightmare into evidence. Asterisk she buys all my lies. Like a golden retriever. Simple. Performance. Strategic about it. The house. Her inheritance, asterisk the inheritance. My Aunt Rosa's money, sitting in probate for the last 8 months. Not a fortune, but enough to matter, enough apparently for Marcus to factor into his timeline for leaving me. I wondered if he had a spreadsheet somewhere, calculating the optimal moment to exit with maximum financial gain. After I finished writing, I did something I'd never done before in 5 years of marriage. I went through his things. Not frantically, not desperately, but methodically. His office first, though I doubted he'd be careless enough to leave evidence there. His desk drawers yielded nothing but the expected contracts, business cards, the emergency candy stash he didn't think I knew about. His closet was more interesting. Behind his rows of shirts, organized by color because Marcus liked things just so, I found a credit card statement I didn't recognize. The account wasn't one of ours. The charges told a story: restaurants I'd never been to, hotels during his supposed conferences, a jewelry store charge from last month. He bought someone jewelry last month. On the 15th, I checked my calendar. That was the day he'd said he was golfing with Tom. I photographed everything with my phone, then put it back exactly as I'd found it. Marcus noticed details, too, when they mattered to him. The bathroom medicine cabinet revealed a prescription I didn't recognize: anxiety medication, filled 3 months ago. My husband was anxious. The man who seemed to glide through life without a care was taking medication for anxiety. Was the performance wearing on him? Was maintaining his double life harder than he made it look? Good. I found myself in our bedroom, staring at our bed. The sheets needed changing. It was Tuesday, and I always changed them on Tuesdays. But the thought of touching them, of handling the linens where he'd slept after talking to her, made my stomach turn. Instead, I sat on my side of the bed and looked at his nightstand. Nothing unusual there. His reading glasses, the biography of Steve Jobs he'd been pretending to read for 6 months, the watch I'd given him for our anniversary. My phone buzzed. Sarah, texting to confirm dinner. Still on for tonight, 7 at Rosario's? I stared at the text. Sarah, my best friend since college. Sarah, who'd been my maid of honor. Sarah, who thought Marcus walked on water. Could I sit across from her and pretend everything was fine? Could I not? Actually, can you come here instead? 6:30, I need to talk. Her response was immediate. Everything okay? You're scaring me. Just come, please. I needed an ally. Not for revenge, that word felt too hot, too immediate. I needed someone who could help me think clearly, help me see what I couldn't see through the haze of betrayal and hurt. The day passed in a strange suspension, like I was underwater and the rest of the world was happening on the surface above me. I found myself doing odd things, reorganizing the spice rack, cleaning out the junk drawer, tasks that required just enough focus to keep me from screaming, but not enough to stop me from thinking. I discovered more as I moved through our house with new eyes. The gym bag he'd started taking to work. Since when did Marcus work out during lunch? The cologne in his car that wasn't the one I bought him. The second phone charger in his laptop bag, when his phone was the only device he carried that used that type of charger. Each discovery was another brick in the wall I was building between who I thought I was and who I was becoming. The trusting wife was dying piece by piece, replaced by someone sharper, more observant, more dangerous. Sarah arrived at 6:25, because Sarah was always early. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. What did he do? She asked, and I almost laughed at how quickly she knew, how instantly she identified Marcus as the source of my pain. I told her everything. The call. Vanessa. The calculated cruelty of his words. She listened without interrupting, her face cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally a rage so pure it seemed to light her from within. I'll kill him, she said when I finished. I'll literally kill him. I know where to hide a body. I've watched enough Dateline. I don't want him dead, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. I want something worse. Castration? I want him to know that I know. But not yet. Not until I'm ready. Sarah studied me, and I saw her reassessing, seeing someone she hadn't expected. What do you need? I need to document everything. I need to protect myself financially. And I need to understand exactly what I'm dealing with. You need a lawyer. Not yet, I said. First, I need information. If I lawyer up now, he'll know something's wrong. He's too smart for that. Too observant when it comes to protecting himself. So, what's the plan? I looked at my friend, my ally, my witness, and felt that cold flame in my chest burn a little brighter. The plan is to be exactly what he thinks I am. Simple. Trusting. Devoted. Let him think I'm still buying all his lies, while I build my case. That's going to be torture, Sarah said. No, I replied, thinking of his peaceful sleep while my world shattered, his casual cruelty to Vanessa, his strategic planning around my inheritance. Torture is what comes after. That night, Marcus came home at 10:47. I know, because I was watching the clock, lying in bed with a book I wasn't reading. He slipped in quietly, a consideration for his sleeping wife, and I heard him in the bathroom, washing away the evening's deception. When he slid into bed beside me, I regulated my breathing, playing asleep. He settled in with a contented sigh, and within minutes, his breathing deepened into sleep. I lay there in the dark, planning. 2 weeks passed in a surreal dance of normalcy. I became a method actor in my own life, so deeply in character that sometimes I could almost forget I was performing. I packed Marcus's lunches with little notes, hearts carefully drawn, messages like, thinking of you, and, can't wait for date night, knowing now that he probably showed them to Vanessa, laughing at my childish devotion. Let him laugh. Every note was evidence of my good faith, my trying marriage. The patterns became clearer now that I was looking for them. Tuesday and Thursday evenings were Davidson meetings. Saturdays were golf with clients that ran long. He had a rhythm to his deception, a schedule to his betrayal. He'd even programmed it into his phone calendar, I discovered, when he left it on the counter while showering. DO review every Tuesday, client development every Thursday, network building on Saturdays. Corporate speak for adultery. I started my own documentation system, a notebook hidden in a tampon box in my bathroom cabinet, the one place I could guarantee Marcus would never look. Every absence, every lie, every receipt I found, every strange charge on our credit cards. I took photos of everything, uploaded them to a cloud account he didn't know existed, filed under Design Projects 2019. Just another folder of my work files, nothing worth investigating. The social occasions were the hardest. We had dinner with Tom and Janet on a Friday at the new Italian place downtown that everyone was raving about. Marcus was in peak form, entertaining the table with a story about a presentation gone wrong that he'd somehow salvaged. So there I am, he was saying, hands moving expressively, the PowerPoint crashes, the client is looking at me like I've wasted his time. And I just said, you know what? Let me tell you a story instead, and I pitched the entire campaign from memory. No slides, just pure narrative. Brilliant, Tom said, raising his wine glass. That's why you're the best in the business. He really is, I heard myself say, my voice warm with feigned pride. Marcus can sell anything to anyone. Marcus caught my eye and winked, pleased with my support. Under the table, his hand found mine, squeezing gently, the wedding ring pressed against my finger, and I had to focus on my breathing to keep from yanking my hand away. You two are so perfect together, Janet sighed. Seriously, what's your secret? Communication, Marcus said without missing a beat. Complete honesty, right, babe? Absolutely, I agreed, taking a sip of wine to wash down the bile. Honesty is everything. The waiter appeared with our entrees, and conversation shifted to safer ground, Tom's promotion, Janet's sister's wedding, the new gym opening downtown. I participated normally, laughing at the right moments, asking the right questions, being the perfect dinner companion. But I was also watching Marcus, really watching him, with the attention I should have been paying all along. He had tells, I realized. When he lied, he touched his ear, just a brief touch, like he was adjusting an invisible earpiece. When he was about to lie, he'd pause and take a sip of his drink first, buying time to craft a story. When he was uncomfortable, he'd straighten his napkin, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. So, what's this I hear about you surprising Marcus for your anniversary? Janet asked me over dessert. I felt Marcus stiffen slightly beside me. Where did you hear that? Sarah mentioned you were planning something special. I laughed, light and easy. Sarah can't keep a secret to save her life. It's nothing huge, just a little dinner party. Close friends, good wine. Celebrating another year of wedded bliss. Sounds wonderful, Janet said. When is it again? 2 weeks from tomorrow, I said, watching Marcus from the corner of my eye. He was straightening his napkin. Actually, babe, he started, and I knew what was coming. Oh no, I said, my voice pitched perfectly between disappointment and understanding. Don't tell me, Davidson, he touched his ear. There's a potential crisis with the Morrison campaign. I might have to handle it, I finished for him, patting his hand. Of course, work comes first. We can celebrate another time. You're too understanding, he said. And for a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt? Suspicion? But then Tom was calling for the check, and the moment passed. In the car on the way home, Marcus was unusually quiet. I let the silence stretch, comfortable in my performance of the contented wife. Finally, he spoke. You seem different tonight. My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice steady. Different how? I don't know. More observant, maybe. You were watching everyone very intently. Was I? I laughed. I'm sorry. I've been thinking about this new design project. You know how I get when I'm in creative mode. I start studying everything, looking for inspiration. He relaxed, his explanation accepted. What's the project? A rebranding for a law firm, I said, the lie coming easily. They want something that conveys trustworthiness but also innovation. It's challenging. You'll figure it out, he said, pulling into our driveway. You always do. That night, after Marcus fell asleep, I lay awake thinking about masks. How long had he been wearing his? Had it been there from the beginning, or had it developed over time, so gradually I hadn't noticed? And what about my mask? How long could I maintain it before it became my face? The next morning was Saturday, golf day. Marcus left early, kissing my forehead while I pretended to be asleep. As soon as I heard his car leave, I got up and dressed quickly. I had my own Saturday plans. I drove to the Starbucks near the golf course he claimed to frequent. If he was golfing, his car would be in the club parking lot. If not, well, that was information, too. The parking lot was half full of the expected Saturday morning crowd, SUVs with golf bags visible, men in polo shirts heading in for their tee times. Marcus's BMW was nowhere to be seen. I waited an hour, sipping a latte I didn't want, watching. He never appeared. I drove home a different way, past the hotel where he'd had his conference last month. And there, in the parking structure, visible from the street, was his BMW. Third floor, tucked into a corner spot like it was hiding. I didn't stop. I didn't need to see more. I drove home and spent the afternoon in my garden, planting tulip bulbs for spring. The physical work helped calm the storm in my chest. Each bulb I planted was a promise to myself. By the time these bloomed, this would be over. I would be free. Sarah came by that afternoon, ostensibly to borrow my stand mixer, but really to check on me. How are you holding up? She asked, watching me, dirt-covered and determined, in the garden. I'm building a case, I said, not looking up from my planting, like a prosecutor. Every lie, every deception, every piece of evidence. When I finally confront him, he won't be able to gaslight me. Won't be able to make me doubt what I know. Have you thought about hiring a private investigator? No need, I said, sitting back on my heels. He's getting sloppy. He thinks I'm too stupid to notice, too trusting to question. His arrogance is doing the investigating for me. What about the other woman, Vanessa? The name still stung, but less than before. I found her, LinkedIn. She works at a marketing firm downtown. Divorced, no kids. Likes to post inspirational quotes about living your truth and following your heart on Instagram. Sarah snorted. Following someone else's husband, more like. She knows he's married, I said. She laughed about it on the phone, about how I leave him notes, how I'm simple, how I buy all his lies. But maybe she's buying his lies, too. Marcus is good at telling people what they want to hear, showing them what they want to see. Maybe she thinks she's getting the real him while I get the performance. She doesn't realize she's getting a performance, too. Just a different show. That evening, Marcus came home from golf, relaxed and cheerful. He'd showered already at the club, he said, and his hair was still damp. He smelled wrong, like hotel soap instead of the body wash from our shower. How was your game? I asked, handing him a beer. Terrible, he laughed. Lost $50 to Patterson. My putting was off. Patterson. I made a mental note to check if Patterson was even in town. These were the details that would matter later. That's too bad, I said sympathetically. Maybe you need to practice more. Maybe I do, he agreed, pulling me in for a hug. I let him, even kissed him back when his lips found mine. I'd become an expert at dissociation, at floating above my body while it went through the motions of being his wife. I was thinking, he said over dinner, salmon I'd cooked perfectly, his favorite wine, candles on the table like we were still newlyweds, maybe we should take a vacation. Just the two of us. Somewhere tropical. That sounds wonderful, I said, though I knew this vacation would never happen. When were you thinking? Maybe next month. After the Morrison campaign wraps up. Next month. Did he plan to still be married to me next month, or was this part of the performance? Maintaining the illusion until the optimal moment to exit. I'll start looking at resorts, I promised. And he smiled, satisfied. After dinner, we watched a movie, some action thing he'd chosen that I didn't follow. I curled against him on the couch, playing my part while my mind worked through possibilities and plans. He stroked my hair absently, and I wondered if he was thinking of her, if his body was here but his mind was across town, in her apartment, in her bed. I love you, he said suddenly, and I looked up at him, startled. I love you too, I replied automatically, the words hollow as winter bones. He was looking at me strangely, studying my face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't met? Sometimes, I said carefully. Why? I don't know. Just wondering about parallel universes, I guess, the lives we might have lived. Are you happy with this life? I asked, genuinely curious about what he'd say. Of course, he said, but he touched his ear. This is exactly where I want to be. Lie. Later, getting ready for bed, I caught him staring at me in the bathroom mirror. What? I asked, meeting his reflected gaze. Nothing, he said. You just look different lately. Have you changed something? Hair? Makeup? Maybe it's just me, I said, applying my night cream with practiced motions. People change. Not you, he said with confidence. You're constant, reliable. It's one of the things I love about you. Constant, reliable, like a good appliance. Everyone changes, Marcus, I said lightly. Even me. He laughed, kissing my shoulder. My wife, the philosopher. In bed, he reached for me, and I let him. I'd become an actress, so skilled I could fake not just orgasms, but entire emotions. I made the right sounds, moved the right way, said the right words, and all the while I was somewhere else, standing outside myself, watching this woman play the part of a loving wife with a man who'd become a stranger. Afterward, he fell asleep quickly, satisfied with his performance and mine. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, planning my next moves. The anniversary dinner was in 2 weeks. I'd already started the real preparations. Not the ones Marcus knew about, but the ones that would change everything. I thought about the bulbs I'd planted that afternoon, dormant in the dark soil, waiting for their moment to break through into the light. That's what I was doing. Planting seeds, preparing ground, waiting for the perfect moment to bloom into something Marcus had never imagined I could be. He stirred beside me, mumbling in his sleep. I wondered if he dreamed of her. If even his unconscious mind was unfaithful. It didn't matter. Soon, his dreams would be the only place left where he had control. I closed my eyes, finally ready for sleep. Tomorrow, I had work to do. Invitations to send for the anniversary dinner, arrangements to make, and a very special phone call to place to Patterson, just to check on that golf game. The mask would stay on a little longer. But underneath it, I was transforming into something new. Not the simple wife who bought all his lies. Not the golden retriever, loyal and trusting. I was becoming the truth he never saw coming. The anniversary dinner was set for Saturday, October 15th. I circled the date on our kitchen calendar with a red heart, adding a smiley face for good measure. The kind of childish touch Marcus would expect from his simple wife. But in my hidden notebook, I'd written something different. Checkmate. 2 weeks before the dinner, I set everything in motion with the precision of a chess grandmaster who could see 12 moves ahead. First, the guest list. I told Marcus it would be intimate, just our closest friends. Nothing fancy. But I was strategic about who I invited. Tom and Janet, of course, because they'd been witnesses to his performances for years. Sarah and her husband, Michael, because I needed allies in the room. But then I added 2 calculated choices, Robert Chen, our neighbor, who happened to be a retired judge, and his wife, Linda. And David Morrison, who wasn't just any accountant, but a forensic accountant who had helped uncover a major embezzlement case last year. I'd met him at a charity function, and when I called to invite him, I mentioned I might need some informal advice about financial matters. Having some trouble? David had asked carefully. Just want to be prepared for anything, I'd replied. You know how it is. He paused, then said, I do indeed. We'll be there. The catering was booked through Premier Events, excessive for a small dinner, but I wanted everything documented, professional, above reproach. When Marcus saw the invoice on the counter, he whistled. This seems like a lot for 8 people, babe. It's our 5th anniversary, I said, wrapping my arms around him from behind as he sat at his desk. I wanted it to be special. Besides, you deserve to be celebrated. He turned to kiss me, and I could see the calculation in his eyes, humor the wife. Keep her happy and unsuspecting, you're too good to me. I try, I said, meaning something entirely different than he thought. The real preparation happened when Marcus wasn't home. I hired a discreet technology consultant recommended by David Morrison, who specialized in home security. When he came by on a Tuesday afternoon while Marcus was at Davidson's, I explained what I needed. I want to be able to record our anniversary dinner, I said. For memories. He looked at me steadily. Just for memories? Memories, and protection. He nodded, understanding. I can set up micro cameras that feed to a laptop. Completely invisible. Excellent audio quality. Everything saves to the cloud automatically. Perfect, I said. And I need something specific in the study. The study, where Marcus often took his phone calls, where the landline lived that had revealed everything. We set up a system that would capture any call made from that room, video and audio streaming directly to my laptop. This is all legal? I asked. In your own home? Absolutely. You're allowed to record in your own space, especially if you're part of the conversation or have legitimate safety concerns. Safety concerns? Yes, I suppose discovering your husband was a stranger qualified as a safety concern. I also opened my own bank account at a different bank across town, moving small amounts from my personal checking, money from my freelance work that Marcus never paid attention to. Not enough to notice, but enough to matter if I needed to leave quickly. Sarah was listed as my emergency contact. The really clever part was the couple's retreat brochure. I left it on Marcus's desk with a post-it note, found this. Thought it might be nice for December. Love you. That evening, he brought it up at dinner. You want to go on a couple's retreat? I thought it might be romantic, I said, playing with my wine glass. Reconnect, you know. Unless you think we don't need it. No, it's sweet, he said quickly. Too quickly. Let me check my calendar. I watched him put the brochure in his laptop bag, where I knew he'd forget about it. But Vanessa would see it if she went through his things. A little seed of doubt, planted carefully. 3 days later, I executed the hotel gambit. I called his favorite boutique hotel, the one where his car had been parked during golf, and booked their best suite for Saturday the 15th. This is a surprise for my husband, I told the concierge. Our anniversary. Could you add him to the reservation? Marcus Thompson. Of course, Mrs. Thompson. Should we call to confirm with him? Oh, that would ruin the surprise. But maybe, could you add the number to his speed dial? He's very particular about his contacts. Just replace whatever's in position 7. It was a ridiculous request, but I'd learned that at expensive hotels, ridiculous requests paired with generous tips were usually accommodated. Marcus would never notice the change. But if he tried to call Vanessa from speed dial during our party. The manipulation felt strange at first, like wearing shoes on the wrong feet. But I was learning that I had a talent for it, a strategic mind that had been dormant under years of trust and complacency. Every move I made had 3 purposes. Every word was chosen for maximum impact. Later, a week before the dinner, I made my boldest move. I called Patterson, Marcus's supposed golf buddy. Hi, Jim, it's Rachel Thompson, Marcus's wife. Rachel. How are you? I haven't seen you guys in ages. Ages? Interesting. I'm well, thanks. I'm planning a surprise for Marcus's birthday, a lie, his birthday was in March, and I wanted to recreate that great golf game you guys had last Saturday. He came home talking about it. What course were you at again? There was a pause. Last Saturday? I was in Phoenix last weekend. Haven't played with Marcus in, must be, 2 months now. Oh, I must have mixed up the dates, I said smoothly. You know how it is. Sorry to bother you. No bother. Tell Marcus we should get out there soon. I miss our games. I'll do that, I said, adding another brick to my wall of evidence. The Monday before the dinner, I did something I'd never done before. I followed Marcus to his Davidson meeting. He drove downtown, but not to his office. Instead, he pulled into the parking garage of a sleek apartment building in the Pearl District. Expensive, modern, the kind of place a successful, divorced marketing executive might live. I sat in my car for 2 hours, listening to a podcast about women who'd reinvented themselves after betrayal. When Marcus emerged, his hair was slightly mussed, his tie loosened. He looked satisfied, happy, younger somehow, without the weight of his marriage dragging him down. I drove home a different route, and was cooking dinner when he arrived, having stopped at the office to make his alibi real. He had Davidson's secretary trained well. She probably thought she was covering for work drinks, not an affair. How was Davidson? I asked, not looking up from the stir-fry. Demanding as always, Marcus said, touching his ear. But we made progress on the Morrison campaign. Good, I said. I ran into Jim Patterson's wife at the store today. She mentioned Jim's been traveling a lot for work. Marcus didn't miss a beat. Yeah, he mentioned Phoenix. That's why I played with Richards last weekend instead. The lie came so easily, so smoothly, that I almost admired it. He was excellent at this. But I was getting better. That night, I left the landline phone in his study slightly off the hook. Not enough to be obvious, just enough that the line would be open. The recording system was armed and ready. Wednesday night, 2 days before the party, Marcus took the bait. I was in the kitchen, making his favorite lasagna for dinner, when I heard him go into the study. My laptop was open on the counter, hidden behind the stand mixer, showing the feed from the study camera. He dialed, not from his cell, but from the landline, probably thinking it was more secure. Old habits from his affair playbook. Hey, it's me, he said when she answered. Yeah, I'm calling from the house phone. Listen, about Saturday, the anniversary party, Vanessa's voice was amused. Are you really going to sit through that? I have to make an appearance, Marcus said, settling into his desk chair. But I'll manufacture a crisis. Davidson needs me. Emergency client issue. You know the drill. You're terrible, she laughed, that same tinkling sound from the first call I'd overheard. She's going all out, Marcus continued. Hired caterers, invited the neighbors. She even left a brochure for a couple's retreat on my desk. Can you imagine? 5 years of this performance and she wants to go bond over trust exercises. The woman really has no clue, does she? None, Marcus confirmed. She still leaves me those little notes. Today's had a heart with our initials in it, like we're in middle school. How much longer are you going to keep this up? A few more months, max. Her aunt's estate should clear by January. Then I'll file irreconcilable differences. She'll be blindsided. Probably blame herself, she's the type. And the house is community property. I'll push for sale, split the proceeds. Combined with what I've been moving into the other accounts, it'll be enough for us to start fresh. Maybe that condo in Barcelona we looked at online. Barcelona. They were planning a future, while I cooked his favorite dinner in what he considered his temporary kitchen. I love you, Vanessa said. Love you too, Marcus replied. The real thing this time, not the performance. He hung up, and I watched him sit there for a moment, smiling to himself. Then he got up, straightened his tie, and came out to the kitchen. Smells amazing in here, he said, kissing my cheek. Lasagna, I said. Your favorite. You spoil me, he said. And I wanted to say, not for much longer, but instead, I smiled and handed him a glass of wine. I have a surprise for you, I said. For Saturday after the dinner. His eyes flickered with something, concern, suspicion. What kind of surprise? If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, I said playfully. But I think you'll find it revealing. He studied me for a moment, then smiled. You're being mysterious. I like it. If only he knew. Thursday, I made final preparations. I copied all my evidence onto 3 separate USB drives, one for my lawyer when I hired one for Sarah to keep safe, and one hidden in my car. I moved my important documents, passport, birth certificate, the jewelry my grandmother had left me, to Sarah's house. Are you sure about this? Sarah asked as we packed the items into her guest room closet. The dinner, the recording, all of it. He deserves the truth to be known, I said. He's been performing for everyone, not just me. They all think he's this devoted husband, this good man. They should know what he really is. It could get ugly. It's already ugly, I said. I'm just turning on the lights. Friday night, the eve of our anniversary dinner, Marcus was particularly affectionate. He brought home flowers. Not the grocery store bouquets he usually grabbed, but an expensive arrangement from the good florist. For tomorrow, he said, happy early anniversary. They're beautiful, I said, arranging them in our best vase. They'd make excellent centerpieces for tomorrow's revelation. That night, he made love to me with something approaching genuine passion. Maybe he was feeling guilty about his planned escape from the party. Maybe he was saying goodbye to this phase of his life. Or maybe he was just a better actor than I'd ever given him credit for. Afterward, as he slept, I lay awake, running through my plan one more time. Everything was in place. The cameras were ready. The recordings were saved. The guests would arrive at 7. By 8, Marcus's world would be fundamentally different. I thought about the woman I'd been 5 years ago, walking down the aisle toward this man, believing I knew him, believing in our future. I mourned for her. That trusting, optimistic woman who thought love was enough. She was gone now, replaced by someone harder, smarter, more dangerous, but also more honest. For the first time in months, maybe years, I was seeing clearly. Tomorrow, everyone else would see clearly, too. Saturday, October 15th, our 5th wedding anniversary. I woke before dawn, not from anxiety, but from anticipation. The feeling reminded me of Christmas morning as a child, that electric awareness that today was different. Today was special. Today everything would change. Marcus slept on, oblivious. I studied his face in the pale morning light, trying to reconcile the man beside me with the stranger on those phone calls. Same features, same body, entirely different person. Or maybe this had always been the person, and I'd only seen what I wanted to see. I slipped out of bed and began my preparations. The caterers would arrive at 4. The tech consultant had shown me how to activate the recording system from my phone, a simple app that looked like a meditation timer. Everything would be captured, saved, undisputable. Marcus woke around 8, stretching luxuriously. Happy anniversary, babe. Happy anniversary, I replied, bringing him coffee in bed, a gesture so utterly devotional it made him smile. You're too good to me, he said. That phrase he used so often, meaning nothing. I try to be, I said, meaning everything. The morning passed in a blur of false normalcy. Marcus went to the gym, actually went, I checked the parking lot, then came home to help me prepare, though he spent most of the time on his phone, texting rapidly with someone. Vanessa, probably, coordinating their evening plans for after his planned escape. The caterers arrived on schedule, transforming our dining room into something elegant and intimate. The flowers Marcus had brought were incorporated into the arrangements. I'd chosen a menu of his favorites, the lamb he'd ordered on our first real date, the wine we drunk at our wedding, the chocolate soufflé he'd proposed over. The greatest hits of our relationship. Every dish a reminder of a promise he'd broken. I dressed carefully, the black dress he bought me last Christmas, the pearls from our 3rd anniversary, the perfume he'd once said drove him crazy. If this was to be a performance, I would dress for the part. You look incredible, Marcus said when I came downstairs. He was in his best suit, the charcoal one that made his shoulders look broader. So do you, I said, adjusting his tie with feigned care. Perfect. The guests began arriving at 7. Robert and Linda Chin first, Robert's judicial bearing making even his casual clothes look formal. He shook Marcus's hand firmly, studying him with those eyes that had seen every type of human deception. "Congratulations on 5 years," Robert said. "It's not always easy." "No," Marcus agreed, touching his ear. "But worth it." David Morrison and his wife arrived next, David giving me a meaningful look as he handed me a bottle of wine. "For later," he said quietly. "You might need it." Sarah and Michael came last, Sarah squeezing my hand as she hugged me. "You okay?" she whispered. "Perfect," I whispered back. We gathered in the living room for cocktails first. Marcus was at his charming best, telling stories, making everyone laugh. I watched him work the room, this man who could sell ice to Eskimos, who could sell a false marriage to everyone who knew us. "Rachel's outdone herself," he was saying. "This woman, I swear, she makes everything special. I'm the luckiest man alive." "You really are," Tom agreed, raising his glass to Marcus and Rachel. "Proof that true love exists." We all drank the champagne, tasting like ashes in my mouth. At 7:30, we moved to the dining room. I'd arranged the seating carefully, Marcus at the head of the table, me at the foot, the judge and the accountant with clear views of both of us. As everyone settled, I excused myself. "Just need to check on dessert," I said, kissing Marcus's cheek as I passed. In the kitchen, I activated the recording app on my phone. The little meditation bell icon appeared, innocuous and innocent. Then I returned to the dining room, picking up my champagne glass. "Before we eat," I said, standing, "I want to make a toast." Everyone turned to me, smiling, glasses raised. 5 years ago, I began, I married a man I thought I knew. A man I thought was honest, faithful, devoted. Marcus swept me off my feet with his charm, his attention to detail, his ability to make me feel like the only woman in the world. Marcus smiled, touching his ear reflexively. "He's a brilliant performer," I continued, watching his smile falter slightly at the word, able to convince anyone of anything. "It's what makes him so successful in his career, and in other areas." "Babe," Marcus started, but I kept going. "Tonight, I want to celebrate that performance. 5 years of convincing dedication, 5 years of seamless deception, 5 years of making everyone in this room believe in something that doesn't exist." The room had gone quiet. Robert Chen was leaning forward slightly. David Morrison had put down his glass. "Rachel, what are you doing?" Marcus asked, his voice tight. "I'm telling the truth," I said simply. "Something you might not recognize, since you're so rarely acquainted with it." "I think maybe we should," Tom started. But I held up my hand. "Please let me finish. You all deserve to know who you've been toasting." "The man who told his mistress, oh yes, there's a mistress," I interjected, "that I'm simple. That I'm like a golden retriever. That I buy all his lies." Marcus had gone pale. "Rachel, you're confused." I'm many things," I interrupted. "But confused isn't one of them. Would you like to hear what else you said? I have it all recorded. Every word." I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recording app where I'd saved the audio from Wednesday's call. His voice filled the room, *, she has no clue. She still leaves me those little notes. Today's had a heart with our initials in it, like we're in middle school. *, Janet gasped. Tom's face had gone red. Robert Chen's expression hadn't changed, but his eyes had hardened. That's taken out of context," Marcus stammered. "Oh, there's context?" I asked. "Let's add some more." I played the next part, *, a few more months, max. Her aunt's estate should clear by January. Then I'll file irreconcilable differences. She'll be blindsided. Probably blame herself, she's the type. *, Jesus Christ, Michael muttered. Marcus stood up. This is illegal. You can't record. Actually, Robert Chen spoke for the first time, his voice calm and authoritative. She can. In her own home, with legitimate concerns for her safety and well-being. Rachel is within her rights. You knew about this? Marcus turned on him. I suspected something when she invited us, Robert admitted. The selection of guests was strategic. A judge and a forensic accountant don't usually make the intimate friends list. David Morrison cleared his throat. Speaking of forensic accounting, Marcus, you might want to know that those accounts you mentioned, the ones you've been moving money into, those transactions leave trails. Digital footprints that are very hard to erase. Marcus looked around the room wildly, like a trapped animal. His phone buzzed. He grabbed for it, probably hoping for an escape, but I knew what was happening. That'll be the hotel, I said conversationally, confirming your anniversary suite booking. I took the liberty of making you a reservation. Thought you might want to celebrate with someone who appreciates your performance skills. You're insane, Marcus said, but his voice was weak. No, I said, walking to the sideboard where I'd placed a folder. I'm prepared. I opened the folder, revealing copies of everything, credit card statements, phone records, photos of his car at her apartment building. Vanessa Rodriguez, I read, marketing executive, divorced, lives in the Pearl District. Likes to post quotes about authenticity on Instagram, which is ironic, considering. Sarah stood up. I think we should go, she said to the room, but she was looking at me, asking permission. No, I said, please stay. I want witnesses. Marcus values his reputation above everything else. His image as the perfect husband, the successful businessman, the man who has it all together. I want you all to know exactly who you've been admiring. This is cruel, Marcus said, attempting to regain control. Whatever you think happened, I don't think anything, I cut him off. I know. I heard. She buys all my lies, remember saying that on the phone to Vanessa while you thought I was sleeping? His face went white. You were listening, old landline, I said. You forgot about the extension in the guest room. Funny how the smallest details can destroy the biggest lies. The room was silent, except for the soft jazz I'd put on earlier, our wedding playlist, I realized with dark humor. Marcus's phone rang. He looked at it, then at me. Answer it, I said. It's probably Vanessa, wondering where you are. Were you supposed to manufacture a crisis and leave by now? He didn't answer. The phone rang 4 times, then stopped. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady and clear. You're going to leave tonight. Take your overnight bag. I packed it for you. It's by the door. Go to Vanessa. Go to a hotel. I don't care. But you're not sleeping in this house again. Monday morning, you'll hear from my lawyer. We'll do this cleanly, quietly, with as little damage to your precious reputation as possible. But if you fight me, if you try to gaslight me or manipulate the situation, I'll make sure everyone knows. Your colleagues, your clients, everyone. This is our house, he said weakly. Now it's evidence. Every room, every memory, every lie you told here. But don't worry, I'm sure Vanessa will be happy to comfort you. After all, she gets the real you, right? Not the performance. Marcus looked around the room one more time. Tom and Janet wouldn't meet his eyes. Robert Chen watched him with the detached interest of someone who'd seen many guilty men. David Morrison was taking mental notes. Sarah looked like she might throw her wine at him. I'm sorry you all had to see this, Marcus said, attempting dignity. We're not, Linda Chen said suddenly. She'd been quiet all evening, but now she stood, moving to stand beside me. We're sorry we didn't see it sooner. Marcus grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. He paused, looking back at me. I did love you, he said, in the beginning. No, I said. You loved the idea of me. The simple, trusting wife who would never challenge you, never question you, never see through you. But that woman doesn't exist anymore. Maybe she never really did. He left then, the front door closing with a soft click that sounded like the end of a chapter. The room was quiet. Then Robert Chen raised his glass. To Rachel, he said, for having the courage to demand truth. Everyone raised their glasses, even Tom, who still looked shocked. To the truth, I agreed. And for the first time in months, I meant what I said. The rest of the evening was surreal. The caterers served the elaborate meal to our reduced party. We ate and talked, not about Marcus, but about other things, Robert's retirement, David's practice, Sarah's promotion. It was as if Marcus had never existed, had been erased from the evening like a mistake in a drawing. Janet hugged me before leaving. I'm sorry, she whispered. We should have seen it. He fooled everyone, I said. That's what he does. Not anymore, she said firmly. When everyone had gone, Sarah stayed to help me clean up, though the caterers had done most of it. How do you feel? She asked. I considered the question. Free? I said finally, like I'd been holding my breath for months and can finally exhale. We opened the wine David had brought, an excellent vintage, probably worth more than I wanted to know. We sat on the couch, the same couch where Marcus and I had watched movies, had made love, had built our false life. What now? Sarah asked. Now I rebuild, I said, as myself this time. Not as someone's wife. Not as the woman who buys all the lies. But as Rachel. Just Rachel. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I knew who it was. You've made a mistake. He loves me, not you. Vanessa. I showed it to Sarah, who snorted. She's welcome to him, Sarah said. I typed back, he's all yours. But remember, every great performer needs a new audience eventually. Then I blocked the number. Marcus was her problem now. That night, alone in the house for the first time, I walked through the rooms like a stranger, seeing everything with new eyes. The wedding photos would come down tomorrow. His clothes could be boxed up and sent wherever. The furniture we'd chosen together could stay or go. They were just things. In the study, I stood where he'd made those calls, where he'd laughed about my simple devotion. The landline sat there, innocent-looking, the device that had revealed everything. I picked up the handset one more time, but not to eavesdrop. This time, I called my mother. Mom, I said when she answered, you were right about the charm being a mask. Oh, sweetheart, she said, and I could hear the sorrow and relief in her voice. Come home, even if just for a few days. Tomorrow, I promised. Tonight, I need to be here, to close this chapter properly. After we hung up, I went to the bedroom, my bedroom now, and pulled out a fresh notebook. Not to document lies this time, but to plan truths. My truths. My future. I wrote until dawn, filling pages with dreams I'd deferred, plans I'd postponed, the life I'd put on hold to be Marcus's supporting actress. The sun rose on a new day, and for the first time in 5 years, I was genuinely excited to see what it would bring. The performance was over. The real show was just beginning. Monday morning arrived with a kind of crisp autumn clarity that makes everything look sharper, more defined. I'd spent Sunday at my mother's, letting her feed me too much food and wrap me in the kind of unconditional love that doesn't require performance or pretense. Now, sitting in the office of Diana Castellano, the attorney David Morrison had recommended, I was ready for the next revelation. Diana was everything I needed, sharp as winter ice, impeccably dressed, and with eyes that had seen every variation of marital deception. Her office spoke of quiet success, leather-bound books, diplomas from Harvard, Photos of her arguing before the state Supreme Court. David Morrison speaks highly of you, she said, reviewing my documentation. This is impressively thorough. Most people in your situation are too emotional to be this methodical. This level of detail will serve us well. She paused at a bank statement. This credit line? You didn't authorize this. What credit line? She turned the paper toward me. A home equity line of credit, opened 3 months ago, with my digital signature. $40,000 already drawn down to 10. I never signed this, I said, my voice hollow. I never even saw this. Diana's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture, like a hawk spotting prey. We'll need David to look at this immediately. If that signature was forged, that's fraud, I finished. Criminal fraud. She nodded. This changes things. We're not just looking at divorce proceedings anymore. Has Marcus had access to your devices, your passwords? I thought back. Of course, he had. We were married. I trusted him with everything. My laptop password to order dinner when I was in the shower, my phone PIN when I was driving, the social security number he'd have from joint tax returns. Every piece of information needed to steal my financial identity. We should pull your credit report immediately, Diana said, already typing. If he's done this once, the next 2 hours revealed the true scope of Marcus's deception. 3 credit cards in my name I'd never opened, all near their limits. The shadow LLC David had found wasn't just for hiding money, it was billing services to my freelance business, siphoning funds I hadn't noticed because Marcus always handled our joint finances. The wellness coach, Vanessa, appeared to be was actually receiving payments from my business account for consulting services. He's been stealing from me, I said numbly. This whole time, while I was leaving him little notes with hearts on them, he was stealing from me. Systematically, Diana corrected. This isn't impulse or desperation. This is planned, calculated embezzlement. The romantic affair was almost a distraction from the financial one. My phone buzzed. Marcus, texting for the first time since Saturday night. We need to talk. This has gotten out of hand. I'm willing to forgive the dinner stunt if we can discuss this like adults. I showed Diana, who actually laughed, a sharp sound like glass breaking. He's willing to forgive you. Save that. Everything from now on goes through me. She handed me a business card. Give him my number. No direct contact. What about the house? Our things? You stay put. He left voluntarily. We file for an emergency financial restraining order today. Freeze the accounts before he can do more damage. And we contact his employer. His employer? If he forged documents using his work computer, if he used company resources for any of this, they need to know. It's called protecting your interests. That afternoon, David Morrison came to Diana's office with his findings. The forensic accounting revealed a 3-year pattern of financial manipulation that made my stomach turn. Marcus had been planning this almost from the beginning. Small transfers at first, testing to see if I'd notice, then growing bolder as my trust held firm. The Barcelona account, David said, showing us international transfer records. He's been building a nest egg. Not just for him. The account has 2 names, his and Vanessa Rodriguez. Barcelona. Where he planned to flee with my money and his mistress, leaving me with debt I didn't create and a credit score in ruins. How much? I asked. 73,000, David said. Transferred in increments small enough to avoid federal reporting requirements. I thought about all the times Marcus had suggested I didn't need to worry about finances, that he had it handled, that I should focus on my creative work. How supportive it seemed, how loving. Can we get it back? With the right legal pressure? Yes, Diana said. But first, we need to protect you from further damage. That evening, I sat in my empty house, mine for now, though who knew for how long, and called Sarah. It's worse than we thought, I told her, explaining the financial fraud. That bastard, she breathed. Do you need money? I'm okay for now, I said, touched by her immediate offer. Diana thinks we can recover most of it. But Sarah, he was planning this for years. The affair with Vanessa wasn't even the main betrayal. It was just recreational. The real relationship was with my money. What does Marcus say? He texted that he's willing to forgive me for the dinner stunt. Sarah's laugh was explosive. Forgive you? I'll kill him. I'll literally, Diana says no contact. Everything through lawyers now. Good. Let the professionals handle it. You focus on rebuilding. But rebuilding felt impossible when the foundation kept crumbling. Tuesday brought another revelation. Marcus's company had started an internal investigation based on an anonymous tip, likely Robert Chen or someone from the dinner. They'd found expense reports for client dinners that never happened. Travel reimbursements for trips taken with Vanessa, but billed as business. Diana's phone rang constantly. Marcus's lawyer trying to negotiate. His company's legal department asking questions. A detective from the Financial Crimes Unit interested in the forged signatures. He's panicking, Diana told me Wednesday afternoon. His lawyer is pushing for mediation. Quick and quiet settlement. They know if this goes to court, Marcus faces criminal charges. What do you recommend? Depends what you want. Justice, or freedom? I thought about it. Both, but freedom more. Then we negotiate from strength. He wants this quiet to salvage his career. We want restitution and a clean break. But first, we document everything. Thursday morning, I woke to 37 text messages. Not from Marcus, Diana had apparently made that boundary clear, but from Vanessa. You don't understand the situation. Marcus loves me. You're being vindictive. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. Please call me. The messages grew increasingly frantic as the timestamps progressed through the night. The last one, sent at 3 a.m., was different. He never told me about the money. I didn't know about the accounts. I screenshotted everything and forwarded it to Diana, then blocked the number. Vanessa was learning what I'd learned, that Marcus's performance had multiple audiences, and none of us had seen the whole show. His employer moved fast. By Thursday afternoon, Marcus had been terminated for cause, expense fraud, misuse of company resources, conduct unbecoming. His final check would go toward restitution, Diana informed me with satisfaction. He's destroyed, his lawyer told Diana in a call she let me listen to. Completely destroyed. He's willing to sign anything to make this go away. Not anything, Diana corrected. Everything. Full restitution, surrender of all claims to joint property, assumption of all debts incurred through fraud, and a written admission of the forged documents. That admission could be used criminally. That's the point, Diana said. Your client committed crimes. He's lucky Miss Thompson is more interested in moving forward than seeing him in handcuffs. The negotiation continued, but I stopped listening. Through the window, I could see the garden where I'd planted those tulip bulbs. They wouldn't bloom until spring, but they were there, waiting underground, gathering strength. Friday brought the settlement meeting. I dressed carefully, not for Marcus, but for myself. Professional blazer. The watch my grandmother had left me. My wedding ring moved to my right hand temporarily, because the tan lines still showed. Marcus looked terrible. His usual polish was gone, replaced by stubble, wrinkled clothes, and eyes that hadn't seen sleep. He wouldn't look at me directly, focusing instead on the legal pad in front of him. My client agrees to all terms, his lawyer said wearily. Full restitution of misappropriated funds, surrender of claims to joint property, assumption of fraudulent debts, and written admission of document forgery for the purpose of preventing criminal prosecution. And the Barcelona account? Diana asked. Frozen by Spanish authorities based on your report, Marcus's lawyer admitted. Funds will be returned to Miss Thompson. I watched Marcus sign document after document, his hand shaking slightly. The confident man who charmed everyone was gone, replaced by someone smaller, diminished. When he signed the admission of forgery, he finally looked at me. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For which part? I asked. The affair? The theft? The years of lies? Or just for getting caught? He didn't answer. My client has nothing more to say, his lawyer intervened. As we left the conference room, Diana pulled me aside. You handled that perfectly. Cold, controlled, dignified. He was expecting tears or anger. The composure threw him off. I'm out of tears, I said honestly. And the anger has evolved into something more useful, which is determination. The legal machinery moved with surprising efficiency once Marcus capitulated. Within 2 weeks, the fraudulent accounts were closed, the debts transferred to his name, and the Barcelona funds began their journey back to me. The house was mine, free and clear. Though it felt like living in a museum of an extinct relationship, I decided to renovate. Not just redecorate, renovate. Tear down walls, literally and metaphorically. This wall, I told the contractor, pointing to the division between the kitchen and dining room, I want it gone. Open concept, light, space to breathe. He made notes while I walked through the house, reimagining every room. Marcus's office would become an art studio. The guest room, where I'd first heard the truth, would become a library. The master bedroom. I'd sleep there eventually, but first it needed to be completely transformed. While construction crews hammered and sawed, I focused on rebuilding myself. The freelance business that Marcus had been siphoning from became my primary focus. Without a shadow, I found my creative voice growing stronger. Clients who'd worked with me before noticed the difference. Your work has a new edge, one said, reviewing designs for her company rebrand. More confident, bolder. I've been through some changes, I told her. Whatever they were, they suit you. 3 weeks after the settlement, I received an unexpected call from Patricia Davidson. Yes, the Davidson of Marcus's many fictional meetings. She was a silver-haired woman with a voice like aged whiskey and a reputation for taking no prisoners in business. I heard about what happened, she said without preamble. Marcus was good at his job, but I never fully trusted him. Too smooth, too rehearsed. He was convincing, I said carefully. To some. I've been in business 40 years. I know the difference between charm and character. You showed character at that dinner party. Robert Chen is an old friend. He told me about it. I'm not sure public humiliation counts as character. Standing up for truth does. Speaking of which, I have a proposition. My company needs a rebrand. Real transformation, not just surface polish. Marcus always pushed for style over substance. I suspect you understand the importance of both. The contract she offered was more than I'd made in the previous year. It would establish me as a serious player in design, not just someone taking small jobs while her husband supported her. Because that had been another lie, that Marcus was the primary breadwinner. In reality, my little design projects had been funding his Barcelona dream. I threw myself into the Davidson rebrand with an intensity that surprised me, working 18-hour days, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. The creative process became healing, transforming something corporate and cold into something meaningful and authentic. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sarah came by regularly, bringing takeout and forcing me to take breaks. You're going to burn out, she warned, finding me surrounded by color swatches and font samples at 2 a.m. "I'm burning bright," I corrected. "There's a difference." The Davidson presentation was scheduled for December 1st, 2 months after the anniversary dinner. I stood in the boardroom, facing 12 executives, and felt no nervousness. After what I'd been through, a corporate presentation was child's play. "Your brand promises trust," I began, "but your visual identity says tradition. In today's market, trust requires transparency. Let me show you the difference." I walked them through the rebrand, explaining every choice, every color, every line. It was honest, clean, sophisticated, but approachable. Everything Marcus's slick charm had never been. "It's perfect," Patricia Davidson said when I finished. "When can you start implementation?" The success felt different than I'd expected. Not like vindication or revenge, but like becoming. I was becoming who I might have been without Marcus's shadow, without the constant performance of being his supportive wife. Winter arrived with unusual snow for our area. I stood at my kitchen window, my kitchen with its new open concept and flood of natural light, watching it fall. The divorce was final as of yesterday, processed quickly due to Marcus's cooperation. He'd had no choice, the criminal charges hanging over his head ensured compliance. I'd heard through the professional grapevine that he'd left town, possibly for Florida where his brother lived. Vanessa hadn't gone with him. She'd actually sent one more message through a mutual acquaintance: "I'm sorry. I didn't know who he really was either." I'd felt an unexpected moment of sympathy for her. We'd both been audiences for different shows. Both believed we were special. Both learned we were just useful. But she'd chosen to participate in deceiving me, laughing about my simple devotion. Sympathy only went so far. The doorbell interrupted my snow watching. A delivery. Legal documents from Diana. The final accounting of the settlement. All debts cleared. All funds recovered, except for about $8,000 that had simply vanished into Marcus's personal expenses over the years. A small price for freedom. There was also a letter, forwarded through Diana's office. Marcus's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. "Rachel," it began, "I know I have no right to contact you, but I needed to say this. You were right. I was performing, but not just with you, with everyone, including myself. I've been performing so long, I don't know who I really am without the show. You were the only real thing in my life, and I couldn't see it because real looked ordinary to me, and I thought I deserved extraordinary. I know now that ordinary love, consistent, daily, faithful, is the most extraordinary thing there is. I'm in therapy now. Not court-ordered, but necessary. My therapist says I have narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial features. It sounds like an excuse, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to be an explanation, maybe a path to being different. I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that the man you married did exist somewhere under all the lies. He just got buried so deep I couldn't find him myself. I hope you're well. I hope you're happy. I hope you found someone who sees you for the remarkable person you are, not the simple one I pretended you were because it made me feel superior." Marcus, I read it twice, then fed it to the shredder. His self-discovery wasn't my concern. His therapy wasn't my problem. His buried authentic self could stay buried for all I cared. That evening, I hosted my first dinner party in the renovated house. Sarah and Michael, Robert and Linda Chen, David Morrison and his wife, Patricia Davidson. We ate good food, drank excellent wine, and nobody mentioned Marcus. He'd become a ghost, a cautionary tale, a thing that had happened but was now over. "The house looks amazing," Linda Chen said. "It's like a completely different space." "It is," I said. "Everything is different now." After everyone left, I stood in my new studio, surrounded by works in progress. The Davidson rebrand had led to 3 more major clients. My bank account was healthy, healthier than it had ever been during my marriage. The tulip bulbs in the garden were dormant, but alive, waiting for spring. I pulled out a canvas I'd been working on. Not for any client, just for me. It was abstract, layers of color and texture that seemed to shift depending on the light. Hidden in the paint were words, barely visible unless you knew to look for them, truth. Strength. Becoming. Free, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. For a moment, my chest tightened. Marcus? Vanessa? But it was neither. Hi Rachel. This is James Walsh from the Morrison presentation today. Patricia Davidson gave me your number. I was wondering if you'd like to discuss a potential project over coffee. Also, I promise I'm undivorced, employed, and have never created a secret bank account in Barcelona. Patricia insisted I mention that. I laughed. Actually laughed. Not the polite social laugh I'd perfected during my marriage, but something real and unexpected. Patricia had been threatening to set me up with someone for weeks. I'd resisted, but coffee sounds good, but I choose the place, and I'm bringing my friend who's a human lie detector. Still interested? His response was immediate. Absolutely. Anyone who can rebrand Davidson Corp while rebuilding their life deserves to set all the terms. I saved his number under his actual name. James Walsh. Not a code, not a lie, just a name. It was a small thing, but it felt revolutionary. The next morning, I woke early and walked through my transformed house. Every room told a story now, but they were my stories. The studio where I created, the library where I read, the kitchen where I cooked for friends who actually knew me, not the performance of me. In the garden, I checked on the tulip bulbs, still buried, still waiting. But I could see the first tiny green shoots beginning to push through the soil. They'd been growing in the dark all along, gathering strength for this moment of breaking through. I thought about Marcus's letter. His claim that ordinary love was the most extraordinary thing. He was wrong. The most extraordinary thing was learning to love yourself after someone convinced you that you weren't worth loving authentically. The most extraordinary thing was rebuilding after destruction, choosing trust after betrayal, finding strength in what someone else called simple. My phone rang. Diana, with a final update. The Barcelona account has been fully released. The funds should hit your account by end of business today. Also, Marcus's former company is offering a settlement for any damages you suffered due to his use of company resources for personal fraud. It's substantial. Define substantial. She named a figure that would have made the old Rachel gasp. The new Rachel just nodded. Take it, I said. And Diana, thank you for everything. You did the hard work, she said. You told the truth when it would have been easier to stay silent. You stood up when it would have been easier to crumble. Don't thank me. Be proud of yourself. After we hung up, I made coffee my way, with just cream. No performance of remembering someone else's preferences. I sat in my sunny kitchen and wrote in my journal, something I'd started after the divorce. Year 1, Day 1. Because that other life, that other marriage, that other version of me, that was year 0, the before time, the performance years. Today, everything is real. The good, the bad, the uncertain. All of it real. No scripts, no audience, no reviews. Just me, Rachel. No longer defined by someone else's lies or my own willingness to believe them. Marcus thought I didn't hear his call that night, but I did. And in hearing it, I heard something else, too. The sound of my own voice. The one that had been muffled under years of being someone's supporting actress. Now I'm the lead in my own life. No performance necessary. I closed the journal and prepared for my day. Client meetings, coffee with James and Sarah, as promised backup, dinner with my mother who was visiting to see the renovations. A full life. A real life. A life where every smile was genuine, and every word was true. Outside, snow began to fall again, covering the garden where tulips grew in secret, waiting for their moment to bloom. I watched it fall and felt nothing but peace. The performance was over. The show had closed. But the real story, that was just beginning. Have you ever discovered that the person closest to you was a complete stranger? Thanks for watching. Take care.